Extra Edition No. 10. The Cause of the Big Bang, a Framework of Thought Energy Cosmology Scientific Discussion Edition. Abstract. This paper proposes a unified ontological framework, the cosmology of thought energy CTE, to explain the origin of the Big Bang, the generation of matter, and the emergence of consciousness through a single principle. The framework holds that the ground state of reality is not a dead void, but the unborn and undying a quantum vacuum state possessing intrinsic kinetic potential. This state follows the principle that everything has function, inevitably undergoing phase transition. Extreme stillness naturally gives rise to movement, triggering spontaneous symmetry breaking, cosmic inflation, and the condensation of energy into matter. Under high complexity conditions, material nodes undergo consciousness phase transitions, emerging subjective experience qualia. This framework provides a consistent explanation for the first cause problem, the quantum measurement problem, the origin of life, and the directionality of evolution, and proposes empirically testable predictions. A ground state, the unborn and undying as quantum vacuum. Unborn and undying, nothing fundamentally happening corresponds to the quantum vacuum ground state of modern physics. Macroscopically, no time, no space, no matter, perfect symmetry and absolute stillness. Microscopically, according to quantum field theory, the vacuum is not empty. It is filled with zero-point energy and continuous vacuum fluctuations. Particle-antiparticle pairs constantly appear from nowhere, and instantly annihilate within the limits of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. This state of instant arising and ceasing, yet essentially unborn and undying, is precisely what non-dual philosophy describes as nothing fundamentally happening. Core principle, everything has function. The unborn and undying is no exception. The function of the vacuum is not dead existence, but the potential for manifestation, the capacity to give rise to all phenomena. This function itself is the fundamental driving force of cosmic evolution. R. Symmetry breaking, from extreme stillness to spontaneous movement. The core insight of this paper is, everything has function. The unborn and undying, and nothing happening, are no exception. Their function is to manifest and change. This premise is completely valid in thermodynamics and dynamics. The instability of extreme stillness, a perfectly symmetrical, high-energy vacuum state, is called a false vacuum. It appears extremely still, but it is thermodynamically highly unstable. From an information theory perspective, perfect stillness means zero information, but zero itself is an extreme boundary that inevitably drives the system toward non-zero. The function of the unborn and undying is change, precisely because the vacuum contains infinite quantum potential. When this extreme stillness accumulates to its geometric limit, quantum fluctuations trigger spontaneous symmetry breaking. This is the physical realization of stillness giving rise to movement, the inevitability of phase transition. The Big Bang is not an accident. It is the inevitable thermodynamic consequence of the false vacuum's intrinsic instability, the ground state, manifesting its inherent function of manifestation and change. 3. The Big Bang, vacuum decay and cosmic inflation. When stillness giving rise to movement crosses the critical point, the universe undergoes cosmic inflation. Potential energy transforms into kinetic energy. The static potential locked in the false vacuum is instantly released. The birth of spacetime, the false vacuum decays into the true vacuum, releasing an astronomical amount of energy. This is the Big Bang. This fully confirms that the Big Bang was inevitable. Everything has function, even the Big Bang has function. Its function is to transform potential into reality, the unmanifest into the manifest, one into many. It is the ontological transition from the vacuum's potential capacity to the actualized universe. 4. Matter condensation and consciousness emergence, the solidification of energy and information. After the Big Bang, the universe was an extremely hot, high-density quark-gluon plasma. As the universe expanded and cooled, high kinetic energy began to solidify, Matter condensation according to Einstein's mass energy equivalence, E等于 mc2. High kinetic energy condenses into protons, neutrons, electrons, which then form atoms, galaxies, planets. Matter is the form in which kinetic energy is structurally confined and stabilized. This is the physical expression of information energy condensation. Consciousness emergence information integration as material structures become increasingly complex. The system's integrated information phi begins to rise exponentially. When the high kinetic energy-driven complexity exceeds a critical value phi critical, the perceptual potential hidden at the universe's fundamental level undergoes a consciousness phase transition. At material nodes such as biological neural networks, the emergence of subjective experience qualia. Core principle: everything has function, matter has function, thought has function. Matter's function is to carry and structure. Thought's function is to perceive and integrate. Their combination is the emergence of life, the universe's self-sampling mechanism. V. Core conjectures and empirical predictions. Conjecture 1. Information-matter phase transition. When the information density within a specific geometric structure exceeds a critical value, a phase transition occurs. Informational patterns condense into particles with rest mass. This is the solidification of information-structured energy. Conjecture 2. Consciousness as phase transition. When the integrated information phi node of a material system exceeds the critical value phi critical, a phase transition occurs, and subjective experience qualia emerges at that node. Phi node, phi critical, long lateral emergence of subjective experience qualia. Experiment 1. Consciousness quantum interaction test. During periods of large-scale focused human attention, monitor microscopic quantum random event generators reg for statistical deviations from true randomness, to quantify the direct interference of high-density thought energy on quantum systems. Experiment 2. Integrated information measurement using high-resolution brain imaging (MEG) or quantum brain sensors. Measure the dynamic rate of change of phi node during deep meditation or highly focused states, searching for critical points where local quantum decoherence rates change. Experiment 3. Information mass conversion validation using high-power lasers focused in ultra-high vacuum environments. Test whether high-density information energy fields, without physical particle collisions, can spontaneously induce vacuum birefringence and electron-positron pair production, to verify the matter condensation mechanism. 6. Responses to 4 scientific challenges. Cosmology first cause problem. Asking what was before the Big Bang is physically meaningless, because spacetime itself is emergent. The ground state is the unborn and undying, whose inherent function is to generate change. The Big Bang is the inevitable manifestation of this function. Quantum mechanics measurement problem. The observer is not an external interference. It is the participation of thought energy high-density integrated information in the physical system. Wave function collapse is the thermodynamic phase transition of information energy exchange between consciousness and matter. Neuroscience. The hard problem of consciousness. Consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. Matter is the solidified state of thought energy. Biological structures are the resonant networks through which the universe's fundamental consciousness perceives itself. Evolutionary theory directionality problem. The directionality of evolution is driven by thought energy's intrinsic negentropic drive, the system's inherent tendency to maximize information integration and depth of experience. It is not random, but purposeful. 7. Operational definition of thought energy. To make the core concept empirically accessible, the operational definition of thought energy is the rate of change of a system's integrated information phi node over time, superimposed on the statistical residual of a quantum random event generator reg under focused intention. Formal expression: thought energy flux proto mathrm d phi node dt加delta reg This definition elevates the framework from metaphysical speculation to the falsifiable empirical domain, allowing experimental validation. By conclusion, a verifiable framework toward the next paradigm. The cosmology of thought energy proposed in this paper is not speculative metaphysics. It is a logically consistent, empirically testable unified model that bridges the gap between objective physics and subjective experience. It provides a consistent explanation from a single principle, explaining the origin of the Big Bang, the generation of matter, and the emergence of consciousness, specific predictions regarding information-matter transformation, consciousness phase transitions, and observer effects in quantum systems, falsifiable experimental designs capable of verifying or falsifying this framework. The cosmology of thought energy provides a starting point for the next generation of information consciousness matter. Trinity paradigm shift, a scientific worldview that includes rather than excludes consciousness.